Welcome to another edition of How to Build Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. I'm Rod Cleef, and I'm thrilled you're here. Now, you're going to get a lot of pleasure and knowledge from the gentleman we're interviewing today. His name's Omar Khan, and he's been involved in over $3 billion worth of capital financing and mergers and acquisitions transactions and syndicated very large multifamily deals across the United States, and actually raises money from international investors for deals here with and aligns with operators here locally. Omar, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, Rod. It's a great pleasure and a great honor to finally be on your show.
Oh, that's very kind of you to say that, buddy. Thank you. I know you're from Canada. Talk about how you got into United States real estate, and maybe give us a little more background. I did that intro way too fast and brushed over a lot of important points. So please elaborate on who you are and where you come from.
So Rod, I moved to the US 3 years ago from Canada. The reason was very simple. I was following a girl. Essentially,
That's so funny. I just interviewed somebody from Australia, and he used the exact same line about it all starts with a girl. Anyway, sorry. Please continue.
A lot of good stories start like that, I think. So, I moved down here. My family's always been involved with commercial real estate as part of their portfolio, not as their main business, right? So we always knew, through my grandfather and father, a lot of the properties that we had, they'd really helped us out during the good and bad times, right? Mm-hmm. So I always knew this was an important part of my portfolio. And so when I moved down here, I saw just the wealth of opportunity that's available in the US. Rod, I've lived in a couple of countries, and I can tell you, US is number one. There is no comparison.
No question.
And when people talk to me about, things are getting expensive, I was like, man, you have no idea how expensive things are. This is paradise for an investor. Even in the bad times, it's paradise for an investor.
Yep.
So we started placing our own money. The usual thing happened. One thing leads to another. You open one door and three more doors open. And we started partnering up with people. With my finance background, I started doing a lot of the financial due diligence, and I started partnering up with sponsors, and now I run my own deals. So, the usual evolution. You start, and then you go from one to the next step.
Right. And I know that you were involved in a deal in San Antonio with Reed Goosens, who's been on the show, a really nice guy. In fact, he was one of the panelists at my LA event. Super nice guy from Australia. He's an Aussie. Mm-hmm. And
he moved for a girl as well, by the way.
Did he? Oh, that's hilarious. So let's talk about, you're an expert in the financial side of a deal. You're an expert, you've done mergers and acquisitions. Those are very high level transactions and raised capital for deals in your finance background. Let's talk about financially underwriting a deal. But first, before we get into it, talk about some of the things that you're seeing right now that are making the hair on the back of your neck stand up.
Okay, Rod, there's how long do we have? It's going to be a pretty long conversation.
Right.
So right off the top, Rod, number one, my thing is that, look, when I moved down here, I talk about myself when I talk to people, right? I say, look, when I moved down here, I knew the finance part cold, right? Because that's my profession essentially. Right. But I knew there's lots of other components like broker relations, asset management, property management, all that kind of stuff. But when I was talking to a lot of people, what I very quickly realized is that a lot of people take a weekend course or an online course for 2 days, and some guy who hasn't even done put together 2 deals in his life is now suddenly their mentor. And they took whatever $90 spreadsheet or $100 spreadsheet. And essentially what they're trying to do is either replicate somebody's 30 or 40 years experience like yourself, so because you've been through the ups and downs, or through that spreadsheet, they think suddenly a guy who gets paid, say, $150,000, $200,000 in an investment bank, suddenly they've replaced that guy. And that's not always the case. So the biggest thing that I see is that people take a lot of shortcuts. And we both know that shortcuts lead to bad habits, which lead to disastrous results. Yes. Number one. Number two, what the biggest thing I'm seeing is that people present you annual results, which I understand why they do, because you got to put it on a paper, right?
Sure.
But as soon as you start asking them, hey, can you show me your monthly results? It's like you just draw a blank. People can't even give you monthly results. And in a value add deal, a typical multifamily value add deal, 18 to 24 months, well, the first 24 months or 18 months are the most critical part of that deal. Because once an asset stabilizes, then it's just a cash flow generating machine.
Correct.
So if you're not able to map all of those things out, well, what are you going to do?
Or if you, even if you do map them out, you better make sure you've got enough money to handle a short month.
Exactly.
You've got enough operating capital. And there are a lot of people that are going into these deals thinking all they need to raise is the money to close. And, you know, they're not raising operating funds, and they're a recipe for disaster. I mean, we're seeing, you know, in this hot market, people are overpaying as well. I mean, sometimes we're astounded by what's happening. And, you know, at some point, you know, if the music stops, it's going to be a real problem. So talk about, you know, I know you're creating some software that you're going to offer to operators to evaluate deals, and I know that's on the horizon for you. I'm sure it's a very exciting project. Yeah. But talk about, let's talk about how you vet operators right now, how you vet. Well, actually, let's back up. Let's talk about vetting brokers first. Mm-hmm. So talk about what you do there.
So I'll give you a recent example. A personal example, and then I can relate it to some of my past experiences as well. Personally, now we did some analysis and we're expanding into Jacksonville. So what I did first of all was that I had one of my analysts and myself, what we do is we took a Google map and we mapped out all the good areas in Jacksonville. We mapped out all the not so nice areas and where all the recent sales have been in the past one and a half years. That gives us an idea what some of the more institutional players are doing. Right? Then, for instance, when I do reach out to brokers, I can have a very specific type of conversation. It's not like, hey, find me a nice cash flowing deal. What does that mean? Right? Hey, I'd like to look at, say, a value add 120 BC unit property, 120 plus units BC property in, say, the Jacksonville Heights or in the Orange Park submarket of Jacksonville. So that does two things. First of all, that gives you credibility with the broker because the broker now knows what you're talking about specifically. Right. And then what it also does is, Rod, there's like 1 million apartment buildings out there. Like you're not going to underwrite all of them because they might not even fit your numbers. Right. So when you do talk to so when the broker now comes back to you and you've talked about this 1 million times and I learned it from you. Right. You know, the brokers will give you their bad deals first, right? Just to kind of vet you out.
Sure. They'll test you just to see if you're brand new and have no clue what you're doing.
Right. So when the brokers, for instance, started sending me some of their deals, I would underwrite them. I mean, I or my team would underwrite them. Right. And I would then give very specific comments back to the broker saying, look, I don't think the demographics can support it. I wanted some additional income with the median income here and the rents being here. I don't think it's going to happen.
Or I normalize the expenses. Yeah. And the cash on your pro forma is X, but we don't respectfully see that because we think that these line items should be more and we need a cash on cash of Y, and that equates to a different price than what you're asking. So And as soon as I said that, Rod, again, Rod said great things I learned from the great Rod Cleef, right? Listening to you. You know, as soon as we started doing that thing, a lot of brokers would immediately be like, just give me an immediate call. They won't even use it. They'll give me a call. They'll try to coax me into, no, I think this is a good asset. And as soon as you reiterate your points and you walk them through the points and your line of thinking, suddenly you're not the chump in the room. Right. Or you might even send them your spreadsheet. Say, hey, this is how we came up with what we came up with.
Oh yeah. You know? I mean, I sat down with the broker. I said, look, man, I think you're a really nice guy. Here's how I'm doing this. You tell me what's wrong in this, or you tell me how I can improve myself, right? Which I think is a nicer way of saying, hey, dude, like, come on, don't give me
right. Tell us how to make this work. We'd love to make it work if you can show us, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And and then when you get these deals from the brokers, talk about your relationship building process to have, to build these relationships.
So that's good. Number one, the best thing that I've found out is through referrals. So if I know one person and they refer another person right off the top, I know if it's a quality referral, the person is a top performer, and they also know that, hey, this person means business, number one. Number two, what it also helps is that when you give people like very precise sort of feedback on their results, then they take you seriously, right? So because when they start taking you seriously, the deal might not happen in the next 2 months, but it will happen. Right. Because now they know you're not wasting people's time. You're not a target. Right.
So guys, those of you listening, this is what we're talking about here, is how you start these relationships, to build these lifelong relationships with brokers, to set you apart from all the people out there that, really aren't, that really don't know what they're doing. and have brokers take you seriously, because as you know, brokers are the belle of the ball right now. I mean, that won't always be the case, but it is absolutely the case right now. And so, we're talking about ways to set yourself apart. So then, do you have any sort of a follow-up program to stay top of mind for these brokers? I mean, do you put them in a CRM? What do you do to set yourself apart?
So number one, what I do is I get on their distribution list. At least all the big brokers have distribution lists.
Right.
And as they send, for instance, as they send out deals, the ones that at least they apply to us, right? Because they're sending out a lot of deals.
Sure.
I get back to them. I say, hey, tell me more about this or that. Again, the feedback part.
Right.
And then and right now you said, brokers have so many deals that you don't even have to wait to touch base with them, because they'll be sending you deals and you kind of have to give them feedback.
Okay.
But from a broker's point of view, Rod, I also understand these guys have to put food on the table. They get compensated when the deal gets done. Right. So why should they waste their time with somebody who's just a tire kicker?
Right.
Right? Because if you got to put food on your table and somebody's wasting your time, that's time you could have spent feeding your kids, paying for their college education, paying for your retirement, all that kind of stuff.
Right. So how do you set yourself apart in that regard? How do you position yourself so they take you seriously? Talk about that for a minute, because I'd like to expand on that when you're done.
Constant feedback, number one, on their deals. Then, for instance, as an example, middle of next month, my partner from Miami is actually going to tour not only the properties, but meet the brokers. I'm going to follow up a couple of weeks after that. And once a month, at least one of us is going to actually physically be in the market, having dinners, potentially, once their relationship develops a lot deeper with some people, you can go out for golf or, fishing or something like that.
So guys, I want to stop you and I want to add to that in a minute, but guys, so you start the relationship over the phone, then you must visit. Yeah. You must break bread with them. They have to see you. They need to look you over. They need to see your passion, your integrity, and get to know you. And that changes everything. Okay, so that's the progression. And then regular visits is key. So can you buy out of state? Absolutely. But you've got to go there and visit and make these relationships. And we're going to talk about some of the other groups of people that you should meet with as well. But remember, guys, think about how you set yourself apart. I mean, I interviewed somebody or met someone, I don't remember how I heard about it, but actually is connected with someone that gets sports memorabilia, signed footballs and baseballs and things like that. He sends them to brokers. I mean, these are kind of some unique ideas, but you want to let them see that you know what you're talking about. That's number one for sure. But then beyond that, it's really developing that relationship, and if there's ways you can add value, adding value. But without question, the way to find all of these people is through referrals. This is not something you go try to find them, on Google or anything else. You do it through referrals. All right, so let's talk about property managers. What do you do there?
Again, Ron, number one, referrals. Right? Good brokers and good property managers. And if you talk to 5 good brokers, at least in my experience, at least 80% of the property managers within a submarket, they'll tell you the good ones are all going to be the same 3 or 5 people, with 1 or 2 additions, depending on everybody's experience.
Sure.
So referrals, number one. Number 2, what I ask when I am in touch with the property managers is I ask them specifically, okay, what is your reporting structure like? So how quickly do you close the books? What kind of reports do you send out to me? Because I have to manage the asset on an ongoing basis. What systems do you have in place? Because I don't want somebody, sending me an export from QuickBooks. Like, there should be a proper system at the back, right? And then what are their policies, for instance? And again, Rod, a lot of this is, you break bread with people, you try to figure out. But I ask simple questions like, okay, if you have a problem tenant, how do you handle that? And some people will tell me, hey, I handle it this way, but the really good ones, I feel, will just send me their documents. Say, look, we already have a policy manual. Yeah,
so they've already got the procedures laid out step by step. They know exactly what they're doing. And any good company will have those systems set up. They'll have everything flow charted. I mean, they can, like you said, just send you a document that lays out their procedure for every eventuality. For a fire, for a flood, for an eviction, for any sort of a criminal act. They've got a set of procedures that they follow to make sure that and that comes from working on a business instead of in a business, and you'll get these small property management companies that do it all themselves, that don't have these systems set up. And that's great. That hasn't been said on the show before. You definitely added value there. So,
but Rod, the biggest thing, just to add to that, the biggest thing, for instance, for me, again, Rod, is like a lot of times I've realized my wife is a way better judge of somebody than I am, actually, I feel. So a lot of times if I'm going for a dinner and, I kind of take my wife and, you kind of pick up on small cues, like how does somebody treat the serving staff, right? Or do they open the door for somebody? Or if somebody, are they rude to the valet or not? These are, they're not, it's not a science, obviously, but these are small little things that tell you about somebody.
you
right?
get, you absolutely, I don't know. You just funny. It's like you took the words out of my mouth because I just spoke about this. I don't remember where, but I have other businesses and I hire C-level people for those businesses. And before I pull the trigger on someone, even if they've checked off all the boxes, I have dinner and I bring my wife because I hate to say it, guys, but women do have better intuition than men. Oh, yeah. And you must trust your gut. And this applies to partnerships as well. A lot of partnerships in this business, and it is critical that you break bread, you understand what someone's work ethic is, what drives them, what motivates them, what their code of values are, and then you go have dinner and you have a drink or two, and you watch how they are and how they treat people. And I've had, $150,000 a year employees, COO I was interviewing that I was ready to pull the trigger on. We went and I just noticed something about the way he treated the wait staff. And so I dug deeper and I found out that he'd stolen at a previous position and I was ready to hire the guy. And it's just, those little things are so critical.
Oh, yeah.
Trust your intuition. I'm really glad you brought that up. So where are you looking for deals? You're looking in Jacksonville, you're already in Texas. And talk about the deals that you're looking for. You're looking for C assets, B assets, obviously value add opportunities.
Yeah, primarily BC assets that we can reposition, number one. So with the big, none of this is rocket science.
Right,
everybody's,
right.
I don't invent this thing. Market rents are below, say 10 to 15% below market. It's obviously in the path of progress or going to be in the path of progress. We can see a clear future here, right? And hopefully as much deferred maintenance as possible. Obviously no structural issues, but
right.
Like I joke with my partner, it's kind of like putting lipstick on a pig, right? You kind of you change the paint scheme and you kind of put in the right systems and processes in. But again, Rod, at the end of the day, a lot of this boils down to the fact that how good your local connections are, how adequately do you follow up with them, and then basically how thorough you are in your due diligence. So, there's a lot of things that are combined, but those are the types of assets. But again,
let's talk about due diligence for a minute.
Yeah.
Let's go there. I know you're more involved in the financial due diligence. You're more involved in the financial due diligence than the, probably the on-site.
No, but I have partners who do the on-site. We hire the right people, all of that kind of stuff.
You bring in, do you typically bring in the property management company and involve them right there in that process as well?
From the start, actually.
Yes,
because even before the start, at least my understanding was that I treat them as a partner. So I say, hey, look, then I obviously, if you've been here for 40 years, no amount of financial due diligence I do is going to compensate for your 40 years of experience. Right. So let's start a conversation. It's kind of a similar conversation with a broker. How can we find a way to work together and add value to each other? Mm-hmm. And they can tell me, hey, yeah, that asset looks great, but the past 4 owners, they've all got it. And it just happens to be on that street corner where things just never work. Right. So they can give you a lot of local street level by street level knowledge that you just can't get by looking at a Google Maps or financial due diligence. That's right. Okay. Fantastic. So, how many deals do you feel like you're looking at these days to find one? God, I think I'm looking at all deals and I can't find a good deal. Yeah, but like 100, 200, what do you think? On average, Rod, I think even for the ones that kind of pass the smell test, I have to do at least like 80, 90 deals. And it's a pain to even moderately underwrite these deals. Right. I'm not even talking like deep dive underwriting. Right. So, I'm sure that you do some mentoring because I can tell from your passion that you care about other people. So talk about what, let's say you've got somebody in their early 20s that wants to get into this business. What advice would you give them, Omar? Rod, I'll give the advice that I've been very lucky to have really good teachers and mentors who've always given me independent advice. And I'd give them the one advice that at least I get to give to a lot of finance people, because I think if you're in a profession, you can kind of relate with one another. A lot of people in finance are kind of those type A personalities. I want to do everything myself, and I'm the bad, all that stuff. And the best advice I got, and sometimes I struggle with it, but I'm trying to get better, is pick one thing and become supremely good at it. And it's to the point where you kind of have to have blinkers on. And for me, I still kind of grapple with it, right? Well, I don't know this.
You mean blinders, where you don't see outside of your narrow sphere. Yeah. It's so funny. I do a driving force episode every week, talking about the psychology of success. And it's so funny. The one I'm working on right now that's going to go live within the next week or so is about playing to your strengths instead of trying to enhance your weaknesses. Play to your strengths, because you will get further faster. So that's very sound advice and top of mind for me, because I'm working on that clip right now. And so many people feel like they need to build up where they're weak, but I'm going to say put a team together and align with someone that you're weak in. And so talk about team for a minute. Talk about what you've put together, and obviously playing to strengths and as an alignment. Anything else you would add to that dynamic?
So I'll give you an example, Rod. A lot of my network, for instance, is Canadian, right? Obviously, live there, all that. Right. So while I still source a lot of my capital from Canada, what I very quickly realized is that I need a team, number one, because I've got to play to my strengths. So one of my partners, he's a capital raiser out of Miami, right? One of the best things that as I'm doing this, as we're expanding into Jacksonville, and this is just an example, right? As we're expanding into Jacksonville, because I live in Dallas and he lives slightly nearer. So a lot of those regular trips he can do, right? Whereas but then we divide up the work where he takes care of the marketing aspects and all that kind of stuff. All the technical financial underwriting part, I do.
Sure.
Right? And then we leverage off each other. Then within a deal, because my background is finance, legal, all of that kind of work, I bring a very experienced operator in. And my partner, Reed, actually is a structural engineer, right? So literally that's what he's been trained to do. So when he comes in, he can go through the bones of a building inside out. And the reason being that what I thought was, look, first of all, I'm not ever going to be an engineer, but even if I did read a few books or whatever, I would never be at the guy's level.
Right.
It's just not going to happen. So why play a game where I'm never going to win?
Right. Right. Or struggle. Why struggle is the point here.
Exactly.
And when you do, and guys, when you get into this, you're going to wear multiple hats. There's just no question. You're going to you're going to wear a lot of hats, but at some point you're going to want to align with people that enhance where you're weakest. And that's how you're going to get further faster. I'm just tell you right now. So we even talk about this at my live events where, and I force people to network, and some of them are uncomfortable. The introverted ones are uncomfortable, but I make them get up and meet 5 people and exchange information and go have lunch with them and push them because this is a relationship business. It's a team sport. Would you agree, Omar?
I 100% agree, Rod. And I can tell you this as kind of a millennial, I guess. Right. I do think everything should be done on the computer, but with life experiences and hard life experiences, I've realized the one thing my dad told me when I was graduating from college. He's like, look, dude, you can send out all the emails you like, but you can have one coffee or one drink with somebody, and that's going to completely change the game.
Yeah, changes the whole relationship.
And I fought that. Trust me, I fought it, Rod.
Right, sure. You love spreadsheets, man. You love numbers. But you're a very, I think you're an anomaly. You've got a great personality. You're not, some people just can't, that are very introverted, even, just don't even communicate that well. But you're definitely an anomaly. Thank you. So let me ask you this. So far in your investing career, talk about, I talk about my big seminar in 2008 and getting my butt kicked. Talk about some setbacks you've had. So many people think that success comes very, very easily and quickly. They see people that are hugely successful and they see what's on the surface, but they don't see underneath what it took to get there. Talk about when you may have stumbled or fallen and what happened. And it may not even correlate directly to a multifamily deal. Maybe it was in your finance background, but give an example.
First of all, I'd like to say, Rod, I am very grateful that you even talk about your failures, because a lot of people, 99.9% of the people I listen to, they only talk about their successes. Right. And one of the things I've learned the hard way I've kind of learned is that I much prefer talking with people on what their failures are and kind of understanding what they learned. Because I think failure teaches you more things than success does.
Always.
Because success is a momentum game, right? You just you get high off on your own supply, right?
Sure. So I mean, let me, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you just triggered something for me. It's like, back in 2006, my net worth went up $17 million while I slept. Okay. And I didn't do anything for that. Okay. And of course I thought I was a real estate god. I couldn't fit my head through the door. And I will tell you that God or the universe or whatever it is you believe will smack you down almost every time. And that was 2008 for me. But anyway, please continue. I apologize.
So no. This is a great look, Rod. This is a testament to your self-awareness that at least you can look at your failure and then analyze it. Lots of people go through their entire life and they can't even look back.
Right.
So one of my biggest failures was, Rod, I still remember this company, Seadrill. Okay, Rod, I worked in oil and gas. I did M&A transactions in oil and gas day in and day out. I was following all the spot prices. I actually did $3 billion of transactions that year. And I thought, wow, I'm a freaking genius. This is good. I'm doing all this stuff. And I took and I also thought, okay, I've read all these books. I've been investing for a little while. I'm a patient buy and hold investor, right? All that stuff people tell themselves. Rod, I bought Seadrill without doing a lot of due diligence, and I spent a lot of money on that. And I stuck stubbornly to my investment thesis throughout the entire oil downturn. I thought I knew better than what the market was.
You wrote it all the way down.
Rod, not only did I wrote it all the way down, oh man, it was painful, Rod. I was like, and now I look back and think, why was I so stubborn, man? it was so easy. If you make a mistake, accept it and move on. But mentally, it was so hard to accept it that.
Yeah, and that's very good advice. And that's very good general business advice, because there have been times when I've had 23, 24 businesses. Some have been spectacular successes, tens of millions of dollars, and most of them have been spectacular seminars. And sometimes you just have to look at it and say, okay, it's time to cut my losses, suck it up, move on, and go for greener pasture. As painful as it is, regardless of how much time, energy, blood, sweat, and tears you have involved in it. And sometimes the best thing is to move on. And I will tell you, like Steve Jobs said, that the most intelligent people on the planet are the ones that can adapt to change.
Oh yeah,
that can move past change. So, yeah. All right. So
I learned, bro. Let me tell you this. I learned the hard way.
Yeah. And it's a painful lesson, but it's a lesson. It's a good lesson. That it happens and it doesn't completely debilitate you. You survive, you come back from it, as long as you've got a place to eat and a place to live and love in your life, and nothing else matters anyway, frankly. So, let's talk about leadership for a minute. What's a characteristics that you feel, what do you think is the best characteristic in a leader or influencer?
That's a good question, actually. I've never really been asked that question. Rod, I think for me, at least, for a guy like me, I really respect, I'm a guy that I understand things are not always good or bad, but things you have to be just, right? There has to be a balance somewhere. And I think for me, some of the people that I do like are people who are transparent. So they don't say, hey, I'm super successful. They'll tell you, look, man, it ain't easy. I just didn't get up in this Lamborghini. There are levels, and you don't have to take a weekend course and see 3 YouTube videos and you drive a Lamborghini out. No, man, it's a lifetime. So what you are seeing right now is 30 years in the making. Right. Like that one of those guys said, somebody said one company was going public, and he said, well, now you're an overnight billionaire. He's like, yeah, I'm an overnight billionaire after 45 years of work.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. So let me ask you this, Omar, what did you have to give up to be where you are right now? What have you given up in your life? What sacrifices have you had to make to get to the success that you're at today?
Rod, my social life has practically gone down by 90%. Pretty much. No, I'm being honest with you. And this is coming from a guy who was very social, in college. Like I had at least 30 people in my apartment every single day, or 5 days a week. My social life has gone down by 90%. I have friends who are taking vacations all over the world. okay, who are buying nice cars, they're buying nice motorbikes. They have a really good time. And here I am, day in and day out, I'm just grinding. I'm grinding. Yeah. And look, I'm not saying it's.
No, you're not complaining. I asked the question, and I remember being in a 1-bedroom apartment when I had 500 doors, and I could have done more, but you know what? I sucked it up because I knew that I could get further faster if I managed my cash. Well, guys, if you want to reach Omar, he's at boardwalkwealth.com. Omar, I really appreciate you being on the show today, buddy. It's been a lot of fun, and I hope we can stay in touch because I love your energy. And say hi to my friend Reed for me, will you?
I will. Thank you very much, Rod. I really appreciate it.
All right, brother. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, please take a minute to visit iTunes and leave your comments. For more resources or to connect with us further, please visit our website at rodcleef.com. Tune in next week for our next show.